Hi, my name is Ella. I'm 19 years old, and you can call me Elle. But I live with autism spectrum disorder and Tourette syndrome, and I was diagnosed with both of those at later points in my life. But I actually got my Tourette's diagnosis when I was in 8th grade, so I was about 13 years old. I struggled very much with it, and at that point, it kind of came on pretty heavy, but I had always had tics like growing up. And it actually started like when I was really little. I remember clearing my throat and just having weird breathing patterns like that I felt like I had to do, which the urges are called tics, and I couldn't control them, but it started to get noticeable in 5th grade when I needed glasses. But I was okay, now that I talk about it, I'm going to do it. But I have a squinting tic, and my eyes would always just kind of tick a lot. And we didn't know it was Tourette syndrome then, but I got glasses and it never really stopped. So that was a complex situation. However, a few years later, in 8th grade, I developed a lot more tics. And I was kind of hiding them. I was kind of staying in my room more and isolating myself from my family and not talking to friends as much. But I eventually developed the vocal tics that were actual phrases, and I was really struggling one night, and I had a flare, and that was when my mom noticed, and she was very concerned, but we were, from then on out, in and out of hospitals, in and out of ERs, trying to figure out what was wrong, and once we got the answer that it was Tourette syndrome, it was pretty straightforward to realize that all of the little quirky little noises and stuff I would make and movements, it all made sense then. Also, I'm sorry if you hear like little nails on the floor or clicking. That is my dog, and my door is open because I love my dog. So, in 8th grade, when I got diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, I really had a bad flare up because of the stress that the new diagnosis put on me. And as nice as it was to have answers as to why I was twitching and making noises and doing all these strange things that I couldn't control, it was also kind of painful to know that I'm just finding out, and I had no explanation as to why I was weird or different before. And when people would ask me why I did something, I'd have to say I don't know, but once I got the answer and I could start saying it was Tourette syndrome, it really just affected me in a way that I felt so wrong to be me. And I didn't like feeling that way, and I don't like the fact that I ever had to feel that way. But if there's anything I could do, it would be spread awareness for invisible disabilities and disabilities in general, because no matter how easy a person looks like their life is, you never know. Disability or not, you never know what a person's going through, and you never know how hard they're pushing just to breathe. And that bothers me. So, I started this YouTube channel a couple years ago and then deleted all my videos, and I've done that multiple times. But I wanted to revamp this channel and make this video because I honestly would feel so good if I could get one person the help they need, or if I could show to someone that it does get better. Moving on into high school, I got bullied a lot, and like it got extensive, and I was having trouble staying in school because I was having the anxiety from the bullying. I was having just all these thoughts that would make me anxious in general, and I would have my functional neurological episodes then, and I kind of would zone out, or I would kind of have non-epileptic seizures, and I couldn't focus in in-person school. I really wanted to learn and like graduate, and that was my goal, but it got to the point where we weren't sure if that was feasible for me. I then switched to online high school that was through my state, and honestly, it was a blessing. It was a godsend, and I don't know what I would have done if it wasn't an option, because even with my IEPs and 504s that I had in the past, it wasn't working in person. And I really liked online school for the last year and a half of my, high school career, and I just felt more accepted than ever. And it wasn't just because the people couldn't hear me, it was because the people cared. And to me, that means a whole lot more than trying to struggle through things. For my online school, I think we went on more field trips than I ever did in my in-person school, which is funny because the school kind of ran over the whole state. Like, there were kids from all different parts of Ohio just in that school. And it was really intriguing to me because I got to meet new people every time I went somewhere. Or for graduation, we had a massive graduation. I forget how many people exactly, but that was really cool because it was kind of like you got to meet your whole class. And even though you've only met them that one time, most of them, it really just felt good to meet them because they were all such great people. And like I said, I honestly don't know what I would have done if it wasn't for online high school. Eventually, once I started online high school, I got referred for ADOS testing, which is for autism, and it was pretty much for my educational diagnosis to help me get some of the help I need, and it just was very nice to feel like I could breathe. I know that might be a little bit of an excessive statement, but like, I really just, it was nice to breathe. I was 18 when we got the testing done. No. I was 17. I was 17 when we got the testing done, and I was 18 when I got my medical diagnosis. But I found out I was level 1 autistic, and quite frankly, instead of feeling the bad parts right off the bat, I felt so freed. For the longest time, I felt like I could breathe, and I felt like my life was complete. However, my doctor was right when he said the grieving stage would hit, and I would then feel like, how did I live my life before I had an answer? And once I got my autism diagnosis and the high of it all wore off, I started feeling like I was wrong, and I started feeling like I was messed up, because you realize as you live after the diagnosis that there were things that could have had explanations. And honestly, life before I had an answer, it was not a very consistent life. It was not sticking to the schedule, I guess. But I would have friends off and on and lose them, and I'd often make my friends mad when I was younger because I didn't want to do what they wanted to do. I didn't want to, hang out all the time, or I didn't want to, I don't know, I didn't want to do all the things that they were wanting to do, go out and do all the makeup and do just social things in general. And looking back, that is definitely because I'm very awkward, and I do relate it to some of my autism traits. But honestly, I am still awkward, and I find it hard to keep relationships going strong. And I'm very lucky for the people I have in my life now, because I've realized that mainly my family is who I need, and the people who care and want to be there will be there, but you have to be yourself around them, because if you're not, you're just going to waste your life. However, those things that could have had explanations, you can't go back and change it to where they do. And you realize how much you lost prior to your diagnosis because you didn't have an explanation, whether it was losing friends, losing family, losing people, like, or even the way you react to things, or the way you regulate, or your mental health in general. You realize that it might have helped you to have the answer. Like, it wouldn't have cured everything, because you'd obviously still be autistic, but it wouldn't clear the air, but it would also be there to help you explain. For me, the grieving process was kind of like a slap in the face. I was like, oh, that's why I lost that friend in 6th grade. It's because I seemed mature in kindergarten, but as I grow up, I didn't change. I just stayed at an equilibrium, stayed at the stage where I was. And while I may have seemed mature in my younger years, some people may view me as immature in my older years. And that's not necessarily true. It's just that my brain it's the way it's wired, it's the way it works, and it's the way that I function. And some people may view my hobbies as childish, which after my diagnosis, I definitely got insecure about my hobbies, because some people like to think that collecting dolls or plushies or toys or knickknacks, some people like to think that that is a little strange as you get older. I'm not a person who believes that, and I honestly believe that you should do what you want to do as long as it's not hurting anyone and it makes you happy. That is healthy. That is how you live your life. But not everyone thinks like that. Not everyone breathes like that. And I honestly wouldn't change that about people, because if we all agreed, like, there'd be no flavor. Do I wish we could get along? Yes. But agreeing on everything? No, absolutely not. But there is an equilibrium of agreeing to disagree. Like, I don't get it. I get it, things are bad. I get it, some things happen that shouldn't happen. But you can't change the past, you can only preserve the future. And the present. And you really can only save what hasn't started. But I really realized that I was different, and realized that my hobbies were different, and that the way I reacted just always stayed the same. And once I got my autism diagnosis and tied that all together, I really realized this is why I am the person that I am today. And this is why I do this, like stimming. I used to clench my toes when I got excited. Okay, weird. Wonder why I do that. Autism. When I was stimming and flapping when I was little, and I didn't notice other people doing it around me, so I just held it in. That was masking. Autism. And it's just kind of like the pinpoint things that you never really think of. It's like it was all within the diagnosis, and once you find that out at a later stage in your life, like where you can actually process it, and you live without the explanation for so long, it definitely is weird to adjust. Even if you suspect it, it is so freaking weird to adjust to. I guess the real thing I want you to get from this video is that things can be hard, life can be hard, change happens, and sometimes you really have to push through to deal with it and keep yourself healthy and able to push on. But even if it seems severe or major to you and someone else doesn't see it that way, that doesn't mean you don't have the right to feel significant emotions about it. Because we're all different people, and we all have different brains. None of us are wired the same, whether it may seem like it or not. We're all different. And it comes to the point of agreeing to disagree and just being supportive of each other's well-being. And that sounds easy, but it is so hard for majority of the people in this world. And I guess my goal is just to spread peace and spread equality vibes and just make life smooth. But thank you for watching my video. You can follow me on Instagram at E, like lowercase e, then dot is in period, like period dot, and then lovely little life, all lowercase, all mushed together. So I hope to see you on Instagram, and I hope you subscribe, maybe even like this video. That would be very helpful, because I'd like to help at least 1 or 2 people, even if I help 0.5% of a person. 50. 50-50. I'd be really grateful. I can't word. But yeah, so I love you guys. I hope to see you on my other platforms, and I hope that you stick around for more. And leave name suggestions for this guy. Anyway, bye!